studying classics and English at Penn. Yes, okay. I guess my testimony is a two-part testimony. Part one began when I started school. My parents aren't Christian, but they sent me to a Christian private school because they thought it would be the best option for my education. There I became acquainted with the Bible. Ironically, however, the kids in my middle school bullied me quite a lot because I was Asian, and it left me feeling depressed and wondering what was wrong with me. They made me feel like I was worthless, and I couldn't do anything to change it. God must really have been pursuing me, though, because instead of being turned away from Christianity, it made me want to understand what real Christianity was. I knew that whatever it was, this wasn't it. I started reading my Bible sincerely, seeking to understand who Jesus was. My grandfather died in 7th grade, and it was the first time I ever came in contact with death. And I saw my mother crying at the kitchen table every night, and I had never seen her so fragile. I got scared because I began to understand that nothing in this world is permanent. I was alone at school and in need of certainty about what would happen to me after death. So I gave my life to the Lord, and I am abundantly grateful that I did because He was the greatest source of comfort for me in my isolation. Then I came to college, part two of my story. Finally, I thought I could reach a place where I wouldn't be different from everyone, where I could fit in. I thought that I didn't need God anymore, or at the very least, I could go to church on Sundays and do what everyone else was doing on the weekends. God could fall by the wayside. I was so wrong. I can't tell you the loneliness I felt coming home to an empty room every night and looking for validation from people who would forget my name the next morning. I went against a lot of my principles. I partied every weekend, and I would give pieces of myself to boys who couldn't even recognize my face on Locust. And I felt so empty and broken. And one night I was feeling at my very lowest. I was so sad. You can't see my paper. Sorry. I was so sad that I was all alone. I felt like a failure. I expected to have a boyfriend in college, to have lots of friends, to do all the things I couldn't in high school, to be really happy. And instead, I looked around and I saw that everyone was together and not me. I was studying harder than I ever had and barely getting by. I gained a lot of weight and I hated what I saw in the mirror. I'd been rejected by every club and every sorority that I had tried to join. And I began to wonder if there was nothing wrong with those kids, and maybe there was actually something wrong with me. So with all these feelings inside my head, I went farther with a boy, much farther than I had ever intended to go. And he called me names, things that I don't want to repeat because I still feel overwhelming shame and hurt when I think of them. Yet still I agreed to do what he wanted because I wanted the affection. And I walked home alone that night, in the snow. He didn't let me stay over. And the next morning I hated myself. I bawled all day long, and I skipped every class I had. I Skyped my parents, and they thought I had been drugged because my face was so swollen from crying. And I was so angry with myself for going against what I believed in just to get the approval I so desired. How could I have been so weak? My parents are always on my side, and they told me that he had taken advantage of me. But still, some part of the responsibility lay with me because I had not wanted to do anything, yet I agreed. I was bitter and self-loathing, and I had no intention of going to retreat last year. Luckily for me, Irene was my family group leader, and she was relentless in asking me to go to retreat. And out of shame, because I felt like I couldn't keep saying no, I went to college retreat. The first day, I was so resentful. I didn't want to be there. I sang the songs half-heartedly. I closed my eyes during prayer, but my mind was wandering. Then, during the portion of community prayer, Irene came over, and she asked to pray for me. She sat down next to me, and I laid my head on her shoulder, and I will never forget what words came out of her mouth next. She prayed, and she said, "Amy, you don't have to pretend to be anything in front of God. You don't have to pretend to be happy. God knows you. He can see that you are broken. If the world has hurt you, you can cry to Him about it because He already understands your heart." And it shattered me more than anything ever had. I wept, and I wept, and wept, and wept, and there was snot all down my nose, and people kept coming up to me asking if I was okay. Afterwards, Irene had been crying also, and she told me God must really love you because I could feel it too. And then my heart broke in a good way again, because it was the first time anyone had ever told me they loved me without me having to ask for it. So after retreat, my life was changed, and I decided to give my life anew to the Lord, to really walk with him. If I had to choose a Bible verse to represent my walk with God, there would be two. Psalm 139, 14 through 15. Ooh, I'm prepared. Okay. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. In James 4:5. Or do you think that Scripture says without reason that he jealously longs for the Spirit he has caused to dwell in us? God saw me when no one else did. He knew me when no one else did, which was all I have ever wanted my whole life, to be fully loved and known. My life is a testament that God relentlessly pursues our hearts, even if we don't want to, even if we push and kick him away. He pursues us with the fiercest, all-consuming love that has no equal on this earth. I felt like trash, like less than trash, like nothing before I knew God. I'm coming to understand that I am so cherished and that I am a treasure in his eyes, not because of what I have done, but because of who is reflected in me. Thank you.